chain drug review, and mass market retailers video forum. Brought to you by the Emerson Group.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Wolt, Editor-in-Chief of Retail Media IQ. Welcome to our video forum. Today, we're delighted to be speaking with Jon Nordmark, co-founder and CEO of Iterate.ai. Jon, great to see you.
Good to see you, Jeff.
It's been a while since we've talked, and in your world, in the world of AI and technology, things move pretty quickly. So let's start just by asking you about the retail and CPG worlds. What sort of applications are we seeing being applied to those businesses with AI?
About a month ago, maybe, we did Grocery Lab at FMI, and we presented some agentic work alongside Think Blue and Nielsen IQ. And I think one of the really interesting developments there was there's this effort to move beyond the joint business planning and moving into something called joint value creation. The idea is to have agents working on both sides of the table. So let's say the grocery chain has their agents running, and the CPG company has their agents running, and together the agents are able to look at data coming from both organizations to figure out the best application of, let's say, marketing funds, how to apply them in the future, but more in real time, so that, it can be analyzing results of some kind of program going on at the moment and then making decisions on what to do in the next week, 2 weeks. And that's a pretty huge difference because from what I understand, Jeff, in the old days, you'd put something together and then, over 6 months later, you're kind of evaluating results that occurred 3 months ago or 4 months ago, and you're not able to make any changes in real time. And agentic AI allows all this decision-making to happen on the fly. You make adjustments in the middle of the planning.
I think in the old world of JBP, executives from each company would sit in a room and come up with a plan, and as you say, it was executed over time. This actually, is this the creation of the plan or the implementation of the plan or both with the JVC model?
The joint business planning was just slow. It was siloed. It was too backwards looking for, especially for today's retail environment. And to create, true value creation, you need to operate more in real time, which is where the AI world is headed. And it can make adjustments on the fly. So even though you still have to do planning, the thing is you can make adjustments to the plan and create value on the fly, with information coming from both sides of the equation at the same time together into this agentic commerce solution.
Yeah, it seems the solution would impact both the operational side of the business, the back end, if you will, but also the consumer-facing piece. Am I correct?
That's exactly right. Yeah, it brings information in from the consumer as they're shopping, all the results. That way, it can operate on a daily cycle, a weekly cycle, not an annual cycle or a 6-month cycle. Even though that's involved too, but it really shortens the time frame for decision making. It removes a lot of the politics because it becomes mathematically, calculated as you're operating. It's not just completely retrospective. It's kind of like it projects and is retrospective at the exact same time. So it removes all this, focus on lagging metrics and then decisions that are more political and way too late.
And I would assume this will move us closer toward real personalization.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In a way, yeah, this is kind of like it's personalization, but it's also mass personalization. Like you could personalize according to stores. This store behaves better with this type of end cap program than that type of shelf program. But it makes the decisions in real time according to individual vendors, individual shopper behavior in different stores. So, I think it should end up being really powerful, but it's a brand new concept, and it's it can only be done with, agents.
Hmm. And is this in the field now, or is this just something that's in the works and we will see in the future?
The models are actually operating, but they're not operating in a real store environment yet. It's just been proven they can operate. And we just presented them at Cornell. Actually, we worked on them in an executive education environment. And I think there were about 70 leaders from big CPG companies and grocery companies that were able to kind of build these agents and adjust them on the fly. But we got it working before that for Grocery Lab and FMI.
What kind of response did you get from those executives who saw it?
Both Cornell and at FMI, both of those places, the people that participated really gave a highly favorable response. And this even, I don't think I can use names of companies, but it comes from some of the largest like CPGs, big grocers, but definitely a lot of interest around it.
Where does the whole agentic shopping phenomenon fit into this changing paradigm that we've been discussing?
Well, agentic shopping, I think it's just kind of emerging. Agentic shopping could come from another area where someone like Google, or a big firm, not the retailer, provides the agent, and that agent becomes a lot more store agnostic. They don't really care where they shop. They may be looking for a type of product or a product that meets certain review and pricing criteria, and will go across a variety of stores to find what it wants. I haven't seen that really happening in any kind of scale yet. My opinion is it'll happen as people get used to allowing agents to do their thing. To me, I come from a retail environment. I started a company called ebags.com. It was one of the first pure play retailers out there, and it got fairly large, over 160 million in sales annually. It was the first version of like digital shopping. This next version could get highly disruptive in that the consumer themselves takes control. Well, really, it's a robot takes control of the shopping behavior, but on behalf of the consumer, and it really doesn't care about loyalty, like about a brand name, other than if the brand name's getting good reviews or they ship really fast or whatever, and the agent's making all those decisions. And so it's kind of uncharted territory.
Let me jump back to what we were talking about earlier, and that's this shift to the JVC. Obviously, that will require a lot of AI capacity. And you and I were talking before about how AI companies are charging and getting paid with tokens and such. So maybe you could tell our audience what these tokens are and the implications for retailers and CPG companies that want to use AI.
A token is a word. Basically, it's actually about 0.75 of a word, but the best way to think of it is a word. And so every time you prompt an AI, a public AI, and a public AI is what we also could be called a shared AI. So a language model that multiple people prompt into that don't know each other. Multiple companies prompt into that don't know each other. Competitors, one grocery chain could be prompting into it, and a competing grocery chain could be prompting into that same model. Every time you send a prompt, that is a group of tokens. And you're charged for every one of those tokens that goes in. And then every time a response comes back, that also includes tokens. And you may put a question into the token engine, basically that requires that has 100 words, but the response may come back in 1,000 words. So then you got call it and this simplifying it, but then you got 1,100 tokens. But what people don't really realize is in the agentic world, there's a ton of token activity that you don't even see. And that could be, when they're creating responses, they have to create context. So when they create these contexts, that requires tokens. There are learning loops as it's trying to decide if it's giving you a good answer. It'll go through loops, and every time that happens, you have token spending going on. And the prompt itself that goes into the engine is about a lot of times maybe it'd only be 5% of the total token usage that's going to happen with that one individual prompt. And where this is playing out, Jeff, is companies are now running out of, they're running through their token budgets really, really fast. So I think a lot of people have heard of what happened at Uber. They went through their whole annual budget in 4 months. We work with a fitness company that they gave Claude to their finance team, and the finance team actually went through their whole budget in under a day. The alternative is private AI. That's what my company does, actually. And then you run the AI behind firewalls. Private means you own your own hardware, you own your own language model, and you own your own data. And if you can run in an environment like that, you don't even have token costs. Basically, everybody should run in an environment like that because it's 80-90% of all workloads should happen in private environments.
From what you were saying earlier, it sounds like most business leaders don't understand token costs.
No, they're learning. Some are learning the hard way.
Let me jump back to the private networks. What you say, they make sense, but how difficult is it to create a large language model for each private network?
There are two flavors of language models today. One are the big frontier models. That's what you read about in the news all the time. That's ChatGPT, it's Claude, it's the big, massive, they could be 10 trillion parameters big now. They're so massive, they have to run on shared GPU clusters. They have to run in public environments. They need people to share them, to make them cost effective. So that's one flavor. The second flavor is these open sourced models that have come out from companies like Alibaba in China. There's Thinking Machines here, which is started by the CTO that left OpenAI to start that company. She's releasing models now that are open sourced. Even Gemma from Google is open source. Meta does a lot of open source releases. Well, you can take these, and if you can get one with an open weight, and there are lots of those out there now, you can fine tune them and distill them and prune them and do something called weight stitching to make them meet your needs. You make them so that the language is made for your industry and your business. And there's work in that, but it doesn't have to be very expensive. And then you can run it on a couple GPUs, like we're working with NetApp now. And NetApp is selling something called the AI Pod Mini. And that AI Pod Mini, you can get it with one RTX Pro from NVIDIA, that's one GPU, or you can put two in there. They're not expensive, and you can put your own model on there. We actually ship models on those ourselves. They just come right out of the box, and they're made to work in general business environments right out of the box.
I assume also a private network, you're much more secure. We've seen recently the stories about Anthropic and also OpenAI where the agents have gone rogue.
Yeah, this is a huge area of concern. To me, I don't even, the token costs are one thing. Privacy and security is a whole nother game. And the way language models work, and this is becoming more and more the case, they create memory just like us as humans. The memory isn't necessarily stored in a database. The memory gets stored in the weights and the way the models work. And this is becoming more and more the case. So every time you prompt into one of these models, it's remembering the time you did it, the context of what you're prompting about. It stores a lot of information. And as time goes forward, it'll start adjusting the weights and stuff of the model based on what you're prompting. And it'll do that with your rivals too. But anyway, then it becomes a teaching machine. So not only does it, you're actually handing your IP over to a third party. So Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, on July 12th or 13th, he wrote a blog post on his personal blog that said, you know what, if you're using a shared model, you're not only paying with tokens, you're paying with the knowledge that you're feeding that engine, which will ultimately allow them to feed that knowledge onto other companies that are rivals to yours, or even teach it to become a competitor to you. Also, every time you prompt into a public system, that's like an endpoint. And an endpoint means, it's like a doorway into your house or opening up a window into your house. And so if you're prompting a private system, that all stays within your walls. But if you're prompting a public system, you're opening a door.
Let me ask you a final question, John, if I could. Do you feel as an industry that we're keeping up?
No one's keeping up. And I wouldn't say that, blame it on any retailer or any CPG company or any, it's just moving. As you mentioned earlier, when we talked earlier today, it's just like the speed of change is so high now. It's hard for anyone to keep up. And that's why, I think people that get to spend 10 minutes on it, all they do is read the popular press, and and the people that own the popular press are OpenAI, Anthropic, so that's all the news people get. Gradually, people are going to come around to knowing they need public or private infrastructure to run their AI, private language models that they own. But in all fairness, a lot of the technology wasn't even there until recently. NVIDIA didn't provide the chips. Intel didn't provide the chips. Now they do. We use language models that have become far more powerful, and our engineers are able to go in and do, fix the weights and distill them and prune them to make them operate on those really tiny chipsets. And so now it's affordable and possible. And it is time for companies to really start learning about this. So they're not really behind. It's just that it's moving really fast.
Well, that's a great call to action. And this has really been very enlightening. I'm sure our audience will find it fascinating. Thanks so much, John. Good to see you always.
Thank you, too.